It has been a little over a week since the release of Pokémon Legends Arceus, and I am finally ready to give my thoughts and opinions on the game. Now, I'm sure you've seen tons of videos and reviews on this topic by now, but for me, it was really important to spend an ample amount of time playing this game. I put a heavy emphasis on pacing myself through the new title instead of speedrunning it, as I felt that would have a massive impact on how I view the game once the credits roll. Before I begin the discussion, there will be what some may consider minor spoilers ahead, so do with that what you will. So without further ado, let's get into the subject matter of today's video. I want this video to mostly be a positive one, so let's get these negatives out of the way now. Pokémon Legends Arceus has two glaring problems, and I'm sure it's the same two glaring problems you've heard harped upon in many other videos. The first of which being the game's look. Graphical fidelity was clearly not a focal point for Gamefreak when designing this game. I mean, the character models look pretty good, but the Pokemon models are really hit or miss, and the landscape is just downright bad. I mean, take one look at the blurry, poorly textured ground and that's all you need to break your immersion in this game. Now, I found it pretty easy to overlook this fault, but just because I'm okay with it doesn't mean I don't understand why so many fans are outraged by the game's poor graphics. We have seen older games whose settings were on a larger scale look far better and more polished than Pokémon Legends Arceus does on the same console. Speaking of consoles, let's not forget this is Game Freak's third time developing a game for the Switch. Now for the issue I have the most problem with. Exploring this game's world is very lackluster. I can't describe to you how disappointing it was to swim to a far-off island or run over to some ancient-looking ruins to only find the same basic Pokemon that I've been able to catch for the majority of the game. Occasionally, the game would reward you with a unique alpha Pokemon or one of the game's few collectibles, but I was usually left wanting more. I feel like Game Freak leaned too heavily on Pokemon being the only thing players needed to discover to feel rewarded. But with so many other open world games giving us various things to uncover, whether that be a unique item, character, or maybe an Easter egg, Game Freak's attempt at this falls short of my expectations. With all of those things in mind, I'll pose this question to myself. Is Pokémon Legends Arceus a bad game? No, definitely not. I had loads of fun playing this game over the course of this past week. The story was captivating, the new Hisuian Pokemon were all unique and fun to use, and the game's mechanics were a breath of fresh air from a franchise that only felt more stale with every new release. The seamless way you catch and battle in this game is the best it's been in the entire series, and the added emphasis on researching and collecting Pokemon to fill out the Pokedex I feel was just the grind Pokemon needed. This game adds side quests, and they were way more abundant than I thought they would be when they were first announced. And while they suffer from the typical lack of variety that most side questing in video games do, I found quite a few of the ones I managed to complete to be pretty fun. Most of these side quests would send you on a fetch quest for some item or new Pokemon, but a lot of them were at least attached to interesting characters. Speaking of interesting characters, Jubilife Village is home to a whole cast of them. When I first got news that Legends Arceus would ditch multiple towns for one village, acting as a central hub world, I was kind of bummed out. But Jubilife Village quickly grew on and with me, literally. As you progress through the game, Jubilife Village constantly expands its residents and services. There were always new items in the shops to check out when returning from long excursions. There would be the occasional side quest to unlock new clothing items or hairstyles, and Jubilife Village's local farmers were always willing to grow your specific crops for a small fee. Of course, let's not forget that it was always nice to stop by the village's ranch to see the new Pokemon I had just caught roaming around with my older boxed Pokemon. So while it was easy to point out the rest of Arceus' world for being bland, at least Jubilife Village was popping off. Now let's talk about the boss fights. Without getting too much into these fights, just know they replace gym leaders in a sense, acting as the game's main story beats and marks for progression. It was during these fights that I realized how difficult a task Game Freak has at balancing these games. You see, Pokemon is a bit of a unique franchise, appealing to both new younger fans and older nostalgic fans alike. This means Pokemon has to be easy enough as an entry-level game for the younger audience, but still be fun and challenging for the fans who have been around for decades. So, while I didn't find any of these boss fights to be particularly difficult, I also didn't judge them too harshly on that. While the game's boss fights were on the easier side, the game's overall difficulty seemed harder than some of the more recent installments in the franchise. This is a welcome change of pace, as it seems that Pokemon has been getting progressively easier with each new game. Although I will say it is still a bit jarring to see how much havoc a single wild Pokemon can wreak on your team, even if it is a few levels lower than your party members. Lastly, and perhaps the most important thing I would like to talk about, is the future implications this game can have on the next mainline Pokemon entry and beyond. I'll take you back a few years to 2018 with the release of the Pokemon Let's Go games. Those games added a whole slew of quality of life features. Some of these features would include overworld sprites and the ability to access your Pokemon PC on the go wherever you are. These features carried over into future titles, and I think the same should be said about Legends. Game Freak needs to take this game and use it as a foundation for their future titles. Imagine this game's open worlds and seamless catching and battling systems in a fully realized Generation 9 game. I wholeheartedly believe this game has the power to usher in a new era of revitalized Pokemon games. With that being said, I wouldn't mind more Pokemon Legends games themselves. There are tons of major historical events alluded to in the mainline Pokemon games, so why not, let's just say every few years, drop a Pokemon Legends game that take place in those past events. Assuming that Gamefreak doesn't completely abandon the concepts in this game, Pokemon Legends Arceus should have fans very excited for the future of Pokemon. Well guys, I think that's all I have for you in this video. Until next time, later.